back to Paper Labyrinths. I'm Nick.
I'm Brendan.
Today we're joined by Holly Nielsen, a writer, narrative designer, and historian known for her work on Bureaucracy, Amberspire, and Thousand Hells. I was going to do some promo because Amberspire is my game, and it's going to be coming out in less than a week after you're hearing this. And I thought, well, I'm going to just override any any objections and say we're going to talk about a lot of things today, but Amberspire probably included. Hi, Holly. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm tired, as we were just discussing that at this point in the release window, it's just like it's happening. You're just like
just so excited because in my understanding, I've done a little bit of research on this, but I don't think anyone's ever actually finished making a game before, and so now I'm really excited to see what the shape of that is now that you finally.
This is unprecedented.
Yeah.
Unprecedented times.
Yeah. If you look at my to-do list, it's totally empty and there's nothing I wish I could have done. And really everyone's going to stand up and cheer and pat me on the back. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we've all got it marked in our calendars. We're all ready.
Everyone will clap and cheer at the same time around the world.
I've actually had reasons to cry that I've been holding off on. So I still have enough tears for when the game comes out.
Yeah. It's going to be like that scene in Independence Day where around the world everyone's checking in and like killing the aliens.
That's right. Yep.
Everyone is instead buying hundreds of copies of Amberspire for themselves, and they're friends that just don't realize that they need a copy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, let's actually talk about things. Holly, tell me about. Actually, what I wanted to ask you is, because we can talk about so many things with like history and writing and so on, but more specifically, I think what originally put like you and your work on my radar forever ago was historical research on games, and I think specifically some bizarre like chess on boats situation. And I felt like that was like a really fun on-ramp to the kind of work that you do, which is like people have been playing games for a really long time and in increasingly weird situations as the world got increasingly weirder and more specific.
Yeah, I feel like my historical research, confusingly, my historical research is history of games or history of play, probably more kind of specifically. And but then my work is more history in games, so it's kind of very confusing and annoying. But it's like it's always baffling and difficult to introduce myself. But my actual historical research, as you said, is kind of I finished my PhD last year, and what do? I do kind of 19th century to early 20th century British social cultural history, and a big part of that is play and games. And the ship stuff was fascinating. It was when I was researching chess, and basically the kind of idea of like any new technology, any new kind of kind of communication technology, anything like that. Basically, it seems like sex and chess are the two things that get used really quickly to do, like telephone, like it's sex and chess. And basically, the chess freaks. And there is this incredible story of ships in, kind of in the Channel, in Britain, kind of big, merchant ships, and they would use their lighting. I mean, I don't think this was like an overly common thing, but it was a thing that happened to be
recorded though.
Yeah,
right?
enough
like
to be mentioned, and it's just really interesting. They used their kind of lighting signals, which they would use to communicate. They used it to play chess with one another. I have no idea how, or they kind of agreed upon, language of doing that. But yeah, they'd be stuck essentially queuing in shipping channels, so they would play chess via. I just thought that was all these little things like that of in playing chess. I had this fantastic story in my PhD of this in Brighton in the UK. There was like a chess shark in the kind of chess rooms, because chess rooms became popular as like libraries became popular. They were pushing to have chess rooms. Some people didn't like it because they were like, oh, you can't have, that's, moral degradation of play and all of this stuff. And then others, they got pushed because they're like, no, but chess is the good type of playing and game, and it makes everyone better and smarter and all of that stuff. And it's middle class and lovely.
a better imperial subject if you understand the rules of chess.
Exactly. And there was this Brighton chess shark that was like being warned. Everyone was like, "Oh, be careful of the chess rooms. There's this chess shark floating about." And just all these amazing little things and all these echoes from discussions we have, now, particularly around digital games and stuff like that. Actually, the kind of echoes of conversations that were happening a long time ago. This idea of like, the morality and the idea of kind of particularly children being influenced and influence in the home and all of this stuff. There's these much longer conversations happening, I'm glad the chess ship stuck with you.
It's just a funny situation, really. I don't know if there's much more to it. Although the sex and chess thing is funnier. I always heard it as like Shakespeare was the thing you would also test new. Like people, new media forms. Shakespeare is like the watershed moment of like, oh, now it's official if you can do Shakespeare in radio or in television or in a comic book or whatever.
Yeah. Now it's art. Now it's art, actually. Now it's a good thing that can be done. Yeah,
exactly.
The thing that really strikes me about the using lighting signals in order to play chess is that it's not like they decided to use a very constrained communication method to play a simple game. They chose to play something that requires like really specific ornate graph mentions. It's like it is literally like using like alphanumerics to construct Dwarf Fortress. You know what I mean? It's like very, very like, well, we have this shared language. It's deeply nuanced, but we both know it because we're both chess aficionados, so we can make it work.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, chess wasn't the most, in terms of like the games mentioned in the sources I used, it was by far not the most popular game in terms of like the amount of people playing, but the people who did play chess were really into chess. Like you got some real chess freaks happening. Yeah. So I think that's where you end up these really interesting kind of like cultural things, and being like chess via the mail was obviously huge. And like there was these jokes about like basically being like a chess widow. It's like, oh, well, my husband spends so much time playing chess via the telegram or via mail before that and stuff. And it's like there was actually like jokes about it. Like it was that much of a a common thing that people could be like, oh yeah, right. which was that was my PhD or my research. And no, I'm glad you found it interesting. I'm glad I like to think that the chess ships led to me working on Amberspire. That was the thing.
Well, I know definitely the start of you working on Amberspire was me DMing you and being like, cool, because I was writing a bunch of flavor text. I guess I should say what Amberspire is. Amberspire is a science fantasy city builder. It's a science fantasy city builder where you use dice to roll resources and build a city. There's a lot going on. There's a big focus on ecology and like in history and people, and so you're building your city on this moon that's also a big mausoleum. I very much like big scale things in my science fiction. The bigger something is, the more like in the clouds and obscured by the atmosphere, because it's so large, the better it is for me. Anyway, and I was writing a bunch of flavor text about the world and just like, oh, in this building, in the kiln they're doing this, and in the tea house they're doing this, and at the centrifuge they're doing whatever. And something that I did for the Banished Vault in the flavor text was attribute all of the quotes to just like a book, just like a made up book or whatever in the thing. And this was advice I got from friend of the show, Matt Carney, who's worked on Perfect Tide, Station to Station, and Norco. And so I took that into Amberspire from the beginning and was like, okay, I'm going to attribute all these quotes to different things. And I messaged Holly and go, hey, where do people get historical data from that's not just a book? Because I don't want to have books all the time. And you gave me back a huge list of things, including... Well, tattoos was definitely the weirdest one, but there was also all sorts of things where like, where do historians get information about the past? is all over the place, right? And I think in modern times, because information is pretty condensed from a popular point of view into just a book or a website or whatever, right? It's hard to break out of that mold, and so that was the starting point. Was like, how does archival work in a like materialist sense, and then I can use those ideas and just like, oh well, in this like estate catalog you have some bit or whatever, and that's the kind of thing that fell into Amberspire more specifically.
I remember I was so happy to receive that DM because it was when I was writing up my thesis, and I was so glad to think of literally anything else that wasn't my own research. And yeah, and you asked, and I remember just like writing. You asked this question, and it was such a nice moment because I feel like sometimes that happens. I think it's happening less and less now, but particularly in the past, people would, they'd know me as like a historian and a game, dev writer person, and they'd be like, oh, well, you work on games with historical settings, or your thing is your historical consultancy is basically you go in and tell people that, no, it wasn't like that actually, and basically a professional fund sponge.
It's an authority.
Yeah. And a lot of the time it's, if you don't get brought on early for a project as well, the big thing is you can tell when you get approached and it's really late on and they kind of ask, and it's like, okay, you don't actually want, what you want is a thumbs up. To kind of like
rubber stamp this, please.
Yeah, basically.
We know these statues are supposed to be painted, but could you just rubber stamp this, please?
Yeah, can you just give us a little little thing so we can say something on our Steam page or whatever? And I always try and avoid those because it's just not how I like to work.
Fundamentally dishonest.
Yeah, and it's
and
just
boring.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's boring. I think the conversation comes up all the time with those who look at historical games around like, quote unquote accuracy and all that stuff. And I always just think it's the most boring conversations you can have around like historical games. So yeah, so I always get people approaching me being like, oh, well, you must work on games with historical settings. I'll be like, well, yeah, but actually I really like working on, kind of sci-fi and fantasy and lots of different things. Yeah, and when you approached me with that, I was like, oh, this is a game developer who actually like gets how like, using history in a way that isn't just kind of like, hello, I'm telling a story from the past and I want to know, what kind of color was this person's uniform and, things like that. So that was incredibly lovely to receive. And I was like, oh, this, and then when we started kind of working together, I was like, oh, Nick really gets it. It's really nice. It's really nice to have someone who just like understands the value of a kind of historical context and edge to things beyond just working on a historical setting.
I do try to value the historical context, but it's also plainly like I need variety in these things, right? Like it can't all be just like from a book or like told in one perspective, in that kind of a history of the Roman Empire told just from the emperor's kind of thing, right? Like it feels, especially for a game that's a city builder that has this kind of like broad remit of like there's a lot of things going on in a city builder, a lot of things it's depicting, people and culture and politics and whatever. So that was like just a straight up, like, yes, it is good to have historical context, but really from a like brutal kind of reality of making a game, like it just needs variety. And then the other thing that was really useful, and when we've talked about this a lot, it just provides a lot of cover for you to not be correct and make mistakes and not like, once you realize like, oh, I can be inconsistent with the flavor text and the fake history of this world, which we can definitely go into. But once you decide that, then like the guardrails are off and you can just really go very far away from like the traditional storytelling or world building methods, because you're not constrained with like the Bible, the world building Bible kind of like verifying everything, every new idea.
Yeah, I think so I'm a big believer, and actually wrote for the game narrative kaleidoscope book that came out that John Engel put together. And the chapter I wrote for that was about, it's called like Cite Your Sources. And the idea is by like, if you have flavor text, if you have information, by giving it a source, an in-game source, it's, yes, it adds, depth, it adds multiple layers of information. There's the information, and then there's also the other bit. But one of the main things it gives you is plausible deniability. And it gives you a license to be like, ideally inconsistencies and stuff like that are, deliberate and blah, blah, blah. But if you're working on a game, particularly a big game, and you have lots of collaborators, like, things get confused, and there's all these different fingerprints on these things, and it gets a bit messy. So having that level of kind of plausible deniability is actually really helpful, and I think much more interesting. I think that's what I liked about working on Amberspire, and I liked that you kind of understood straight away, was that actually bringing in kind of historical perspective is about making things kind of reliably unreliable or reliably kind of like, information dynamics and stuff like that, rather than being like very, I think a lot of people equate kind of like lore with history, that kind of, history is a codex of things that happen one after another. And we, and as historians, we just kind of stand around and look at the real world Bible and don't touch it, and, all of that stuff. When actually it's much more interesting than that, because it's a written thing by lots of different people. And it's, if you get more than, if you have two historians in a room and ask them to agree on something, they won't. Like, it's impossible to get historians to agree. So why would that be the case in the narratives that we tell if we're using like, past and historical stuff and narratives? I always thought that's really fun. And as you say, it brings different perspectives. And also it's interesting if you're telling everything from one source, right? So as you said, you wanted variety because you had you asked, okay, beyond books, what do people use? And I think that's also really good, because it means that you can tell different kinds of stories, and different levels of stories. It means you get access to maybe kind of like, particularly in a city builder, okay, how do you access normal people in this city? They may not be writing books. They don't have time to write books. They'll be looking at other things. They'll be doing other things. And so it lets you look at the world and the perspective from lots of different layers, rather than it always being this more kind of top-down approach. And I think that's always really appealing to me in particular, because my historical research, I look at the history of every day. I look at everyday lives. I look at, the quote-unquote mundane stuff. And that's what's always been interesting to me. When it comes to histories where it's like, and this king did this thing, and they waged war, and big quote unquote great men doing big important things and stuff, I find that kind of history painfully dull. Like, it's probably maybe that might be bad to say, but. And unfortunately, when you learn history at school, sometimes it takes a long time. Some people love that kind of history, in which case, great, you're really well catered for. But to escape that, you have to kind of stick with it for a long time before you get to actually delve into, or at least that was the case when I was learning. That kind of everyday aspect. And I think that's what appealed to me about working on a city builder as well, is that there are people, you have these big things, you have the mausoleum, you have these factions and stuff, but also with that comes, there's just people in the city, and how do they feel about these big things. And so that was really fun to work with.
Amberspire, I think, is particularly well suited to take advantage of that kind of broad, not always coherent, not always consistent kind of approach to historical storytelling, in part because the player isn't in direct control of everything that goes on. Like, one of the things that really, really hooked me when you were first talking to me about Amberspire, Nick, was that you are in control of, like, building these particular buildings, but you are not in control of, do I always have the resources? Do I always have the people necessary in order to do these things? The people are going to build the city in whatever direction they see fit. It is up to you to react and accommodate both to them and to the weather and to the shortages and surpluses and the factions that are all acting upon you. You're less of like a controller or a ruler and more of like a custodian or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that was that idea came out of playing other city builders and other like kinds of city builder, or sorry, other city builders of similar kinds, which very like resource focused, very like, oh, I have a unit of whatever and I'm going to use it to do something, as opposed to as opposed to SimCity, which or the SimCity like vein, whereas like, you're kind of placing zones and doing that kind of thing. And so playing the resourcey type, let's say, I got very fed up with placing houses very quickly. And this isn't like necessarily a criticism of the like any specific game, but it was more like, oh, really, like I need to place like another 30 houses, and they all got to be within the same range of the blah blah blah, so that they grow and then they become more educated and yada yada yada. And I got that I hit that like breaking point very quickly, and so I just sort of decided like, okay, I'm not going to do that. Like you're just gonna like put the Amberspire, you put down like a landing pad or a starport, you put resources in those, and then out come residents, and they start building houses and doing things. And that kind of idea pushed a lot of the game in that like out of your control direction. I really wanted like an ecological kind of aspect to the area around your city, and that is very out of your control to some degree. And obviously dice, like you kind of know the things you could get, but you won't know until the dice rolls. And so the game's not out, so I don't know if people like that, because city builders, the like typical audience for a city builder, and this is something we talked about endlessly, was like, boy, people really like to build exactly what they want, and this game was really not letting you do that. And I got a lot of feedback from playtesters going, oh, this is really cool, but could I just place houses where I want to place them? And I'm like, no. No, and please like it anyway. What is interesting to me, though, with the, like, Holly, you're talking about the history usually defaulting to that great men perspective, or big actors moving on the world stage kind of thing, is games usually situate the player in that point of view as well, right? And so like so much lore, and I don't think this is like an intentional thing, right, but like lore having this kind of like static biblical, let's say, quality mimics the perspective that the player is usually situated in a civilization or a Crusader Kings or whatever, where like you make the game go, you press the buttons, and there are other actors and maybe they are doing their things, but that I find like a interesting doubling of like confluence, and I don't think civilization is the way it is because history has been written in the great man perspective or anything like that. But yeah, I guess I don't have like a specific point from that.
You could maybe argue that potentially, the types of games, I'm actually writing a paper at the moment kind of that touches on some of this stuff, and the kind of games and historical games that we have are often a reflection of the types of histories that we tell. And so there's kind of games I have from the early 19th century that are kind of teaching aids. They were kind of classified as educational ephemera, and they're board games designed to teach history. And they're very, they're kind of very simple. They're like roll and move games, and then they're really beautiful things because this was, they're hand painted lithographed, gorgeous. They're very much for like upper middle class or upper class children as part of their, education. You have to have an adult with you to play. So it's a very kind of, there's the understanding that you would have someone with you as you play.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I've heard of these games, like these kind of like imperial education games, but I didn't realize it was a like... So is the adult there for context in like, oh, you're doing this thing and this is how it equates in the real world, or something beyond that?
I think the adult is basically there to read the big blocks of text.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they kind of really, and I think there is the idea that this is part of, there's also a lot of assumptions there, right? That there is an adult there who has the time to sit with you, so it would be a
tutor or
whatever.
Exactly,
a tutor or nanny or someone who would be all this stuff. So again, really telling that this is very much like an upper middle class / upper class pursuit at this point for these educational ephemera stuff. But they're trying to teach history, and they're roll and move, but they're what's kind of known as like Whiggish history, and that's the idea of this kind of idea of progress and everything. History is just like stuff adding up and stuff leading. This thing led to this thing, and this thing led to this thing, which leads to now, and isn't now wonderful and great, and modernity is awesome. And and although Civilization is a far better game than these games, I will give it that as someone who has played hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of hours of Civilization. But the idea of like a tech tree is inherently a Whiggish understanding of history and things like that. They are this like, and I think, I still haven't played the latest Civilization game, which is probably terrible, but I think they're trying to escape that. From my understandings, at least, they're trying to escape that a little bit.
Terrible that you haven't played it, not Civilization. The latest one is terrible.
Oh, no! I haven't played it.
Okay.
Terrible that I have not yet played it, rather than I have played it. It's terrible. Thank you for making me make that clear.
Don't add us.
Yeah. No. Have not played it yet. Really, probably should have, but I will get around to it. I think they're trying to move away from that, but I think it's interesting to me because the very systems of the game itself are, you can't, how far you can move away from that is, I'd be interested to see what they do with it, because I think it's inherently a very Whiggish understanding. And if they can move away from that, that would be, incredible. But also I think they are just restricted by, that's the nature of the game in itself. So yeah, I'm curious. I really should have played it by now, but there's just so many games. There's so many.
There's a lot.
Yeah, after Amberspire, they should just stop, I think.
I agree as
May
well.
6th, they just, no more, it's all good. I guess, you know what, Star Wars Zero Company can come out after that, and then that's
Oh
fine.
wait, Thousand Hells, I need other games to come out.
Yeah.
I'll have that one come out.
But that's
no,
it.
David Dunham can make games forever, that's fine. Special dispensation, yes.
The Dunham dispensation, as it's known. Yeah.
Good.
I find we don't have to go deep on Civilization, the game, but I find it fascinating how constrained they are historically within the history of the game specifically, right? So like the tech tree, like if they ever were able to get rid of the tech tree, I would be very fascinated, because that is like its own genre right now. And so it's, could you make a Civilization game that isn't into the Civilization genre?
I was going to say, like, part of the thrill for me of loading up a Civilization game is that I know that tech tree, right? And I'm like,
exactly.
This time I'm going to be Gilgamesh, known historical figure Gilgamesh, and I'm going to go really deep into aqueducts. You know what I mean? And that's that's a path that I know reliably that I can take, which is more a product of Civilization as a franchise than it is about actual history or civilization building or anything like that. Which, that's...
what I would love, if I were just armchair designing
which you are.
Games, is, a 4xe game. Let's move away from Civ, I guess, specifically. Sure. A 4xe game where you went back into the past, like you play through a certain amount of time, and then you like reload, and not reload in that you wipe the save, but it's like all the things still happened, and you're in a different perspective, and you're playing the game again, but then you have those like contradictions and those perspectives of, I guess like Microscope, the tabletop RPG, but systematized in, video gamey ways, I think would be a lot of fun. It would ask a lot of the player to understand. It would be a lot for the player to hold in their head, which is like the perennial problem that designers are always running into. But I think that would be a lot of fun. I don't know if it could work, but...
I love anything... Oh, sorry.
No, please, go right ahead.
I was going to say, I love anything that has like a big time jump as part of it. I love anything that has I've seen a bunch of people talk about Dragon Age 2 recently, so it's like in my head. But one of the reasons I love that game is, I love an unreliable narrator. It's got two of my things: unreliable narrator and time skips, like big time jumps. It's like, love that. I want more of that.
It's a good game.
Yeah, you looked so excited there when I brought it up.
More and more people are talking about why Dragon Age 2 is the best one.
It's got some of the best writing, I think, and the best characters. Yeah.
I think about the Qun a lot.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I remember ages ago when I was still because I started as a journalist and games kind of critic. And I remember ages ago writing a piece about, because I think Dragon Age, like the series, again, I haven't played the latest one, so I'm talking about the three, Origins, 2, and then Inquisition.
The three that everyone has played.
Yeah, the three that everyone's played, and also are just really weirdly, because Origins 2 and Inquisition, just really annoyingly named. And I think they do history incredibly well in that series. First of all, because the codex they're all named and cited sources and stuff like that. So great. That means that it can be unreliable. That means you have more information happening, because like who's saying it and why is all great. But even just Oh, sorry.
Well, real quick, how much do they play with that unreliability of the codex? Do they like properly have like, very opposing things entered, or is it just like cited?
I think there is some opposing stuff, but to be honest, I can't speak. There's some stuff that happens in the game itself. I remember there's a kind of reveal that happens in Inquisition that goes against kind of what had previously been stated as a thing, and as this is part of the world and this is a thing. And I think some people at the time got kind of upset with that, because they were like, no, it's breaking canon and stuff. And people were going, well, no, actually, it's it's just, this is how things work.
The word canon.
It's and so they have played with that. And even just Dragon Age Origins, the opening is like it's just such a, it's fantasy stuff, but it opens with a kind of a quote from a canticle, which is like, a hymn, and then it says the first words are, the chantry tells us, and then it goes into and the Darkspawn came because of hubris of man, and in fantasy, blah 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 blah. But just by saying the chantry tells us at the beginning, immediately you've got context, that there's like a macro understanding that comes from a religious organization. You've got the idea that they're telling us, that's a power dynamic. It's not that we're, so it's just all that stuff. But it's like pretty economically, you've already made it. I don't know. I just think it's a really good framework and setup to use, that I think they do very well in that. And apparently they were very deliberate in how they thought about their history and used it. So I think you can tell. I have a lot of love for Dragon Age, as you can probably tell.
Yeah, I always associated. I guess I just assumed, because I'm not into Dragon Age. I know absolutely nothing about it, except that the world is called Thedas, and that just means the Dragon Age setting, which
I feel like that's the when Aragorn kicked the helmet, he broke his toe of like the gaming world.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Holly.
Boy, what was I going to say?
Sorry, I'm completely.
It's okay. No, it's fine. It's fine. I was just talking about what I didn't know about. Oh, right. I assume Dragon Age was typical lore Bible-y kind of style, right? And it has a fandom that it just has a fandom, right? In that kind of just loose, broad sense that modern intellectual properties have fandoms. And so I guess hearing all that now, I wonder how aggressively they try to push against the fandom's idea of like wanting a canon and a lore that they can understand, which is like neither here nor there. I'm just interested in finding that out.
I mean, one of the things that really attracted me to the setting is that it's loaded up with factions that have really opposed ideas about how the world works and what is right and what the interactions of things are. And that's not merely like a belief thing. It's like they are interacting with magic in different realms and stuff like that, and have different opinions on what this means. Like, is this hell, or is this just like another dimension that is adjacent to us? That kind of thing.
That's fun.
Am I doing something that can never be forgiven, or is this Tuesday? That kind of thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
They're good games. They're good games, Nick.
Yeah, they're good. You should play them.
I don't think I'm going to do that.
If I started a podcast about the Dragon Age series, would you listen to it?
Yeah, I would, but I wouldn't pay 100% attention to it.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So,
second screen material.
Yeah. That's while I'm doing some, mini painting or whatever.
You've got me on mute, and you've got the game on. Really quick, I remembered, and I want to put it out there because if not, someone else is going to get mad that we didn't bring it up. But I remembered that Civ 6 has a tech and civic shuffle mode where the tech tree gets completely scrambled. It was a late...
How completely? Because surely they're not putting the wheel in like the 15th century
Sometimes.
or something.
I mean,
Is it really?
I've definitely played games of Civ where, like, because I'll just be going, like, I don't know, I'm going all in on culture, and like my civilization has like libraries and stuff, but has not invented the wheel or got like fire or something.
I forgot about iron. I was supposed to get iron somewhere in there.
I'm walking around going, what's that?
Yeah.
What's that you're holding? It's like really heavy and it hurts when you hit me with it. I really wish I knew what that was.
6 wound up with, you know, a bunch of different stuff. There's like, and this is not mod stuff. This is stuff that is like officially released.
Right.
There's like, there was a Secret Societies update. There's a zombie defense mode. There's a cataclysm mode.
How have I never heard of any of this?
Me neither.
No. Yeah. Is it because I play on the Switch and it's just like you get what you want? Like you just get the basic
Maybe,
bitch civilization on the Switch.
I'm too busy trying to understand how militias in Dwarf Fortress really work to pay attention to Civ. And no, I don't know how they
The
work.
4
really.
secret societies are the Owls of Minerva, the Hermetic Order, the Void Singers, and the Sanguine Pact.
Ooh.
Those are really good names for slightly
Joining the
generic.
pact unlocks the unique vampire.
Oh my god. They really went all out.
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't know
cool.
any of
Yeah,
this.
I had absolutely no idea that this was a thing. Well, there you go. Now I have to play this.
Yeah.
The vampire unit.
It's 2026. We're getting back into Civ 6.
I never left.
Anyway, there's a lot of 4X games doing interesting thematic things where I think a vampire in Civ is amusing, but is not... I would imagine, I'm going to take a wild guess and say it doesn't like fully fold in like the mythical idea of the vampire into the like systems of the game. But I would love to be wrong.
I mean, it's an additional combat unit that gains strength and can retreat to a vampire castle.
I'm a gamer and I love additional
But
combat
you still have to
units.
deal with Copenhagen being an economic powerhouse in spite of the strength of your vampires. So,
If that's not history, I don't know what is.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
This is a really advantageous moment for me being able to talk to the two of you about Amberspire because, you know, I've been kind of quiet about it. I've been, you know, but I've been recently recognized as the worst Amberspire player on the face of the earth. A panel of judges looked at the cities that I had built and agreed. Yeah,
Dog shit cities.
You could not have done a worse job.
Why? So hold on. Goofing aside, this is the first time hearing this. And this is just some live feedback.
Live feedback.
Why? What makes it a bad city in your mind? Because the game doesn't like judge you. There's no points. There are technically fail states, but the game doesn't even recognize a fail state, right?
Sure.
So, in Brendan's mind, what's a bad
Stupid
city that you're?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you three pieces of information about my latest city, the city that I played in anticipation of this very call. Okay. One, it's full of holes.
Most of them do have.
It's kind of meant to be.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
there's a lot of bottomless pits around my city. And here's the thing, there's more of them than there were when I got there. So
So that's a metric of doing not right. Sure.
Two, there's rust. There's like you know, I've done a really, really good job about water. I mop up all the water. I mow the grass. That's fine. Fog hasn't been that big of a problem. But there is like just a tidal wave of rust around 2/3 of the city. And I try to vacuum it up. I try and you know hit it with the dustbuster, but it
Go out there with some like barkeeper's friend.
sure. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. It's kind of like if you've been in a city when it's cedar season and it's just spraying pollen all over the place. It's like that, but with rust.
Right.
It's not great. Number 3. I've got 3 factions in my city.
Oh boy.
Every single one of them hates my guts. They do not.
They
like
hate
stuff.
all the rust.
They hate the rust, but more than that, they hate that I have no influence. They hate that
That's
I really,
Yeah.
I look in my pocket for some influence, and I pull it out, and a little moth flies out. I slap my forehead, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't have any influence to accommodate
make you
your
happy.
needs or to prevent sinkholes from opening up in my terrible city.
okay.
Yeah.
I think this is a pretty fair assessment that you have done a poor job at making a city in Amberspire. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds bad. Yeah. Though the Barkeep's Friends events were my favorite to write, so, that's good.
That's good. So, serious jokes have been sent out of the room. This is a real scenario that is very deliberate. Like, there's a real situation you can get yourself into, and I think looking back on it, I can see exactly how I got into that situation, because I was continuing to roll dice that I honestly had no business rolling, and that was just generating event after event after event that I should not have been generating. In order, I was pursuing, I was tilting. Maybe I was trying to get some.
Oh.
I was trying to get some resources that I had a 1 out of 6 chance of getting, and instead I was just getting. I was reaping the rust and the events. And I think it's. I had a very, again, I went back and played it for this pod. I played a bunch of it, earlier this year, and it definitely took me a couple of tries to be like, oh, I see what I'm doing wrong. Let me start a new city. I can learn from these mistakes. And that one was just a little bit better. It was a little bit more tightly put together. I was a lot more aggressive about, like, I don't need this building anymore, and I'm going to deconstruct it. So I'm never tempted to roll that dice anymore, because I don't want to roll that dice. And I thought it was really interesting to very seriously, like, spiral out and have to, like, come to the surface and be like, okay, what did I do wrong? What have I got to do next time?
As I've kind of like entered this final stretch, and this happened with the Banished Vault as well, where us on the team and me go, oh, this is what the game is, and which you would think, like, boy, shouldn't you know that, like, from the beginning? And you do generally, but I guess my style of design is not write it all down and then just fill in the blanks. It's a little bit more. I'm kind of like groping around in the dark for something solid, I guess. So the big realization in coming into the last few months of production was like, oh, this game is very, very, very random in that what a city can be, the possibility space is very wide, and sometimes the city is just really hard it just always is fighting you. And I'd get playtest reports, and the trick is like, well, ideally we don't have it like frustrating, so how can we tune things without like shaving off all of these interesting rough edges? And then some people would have like a very easy time with it and go, okay, does it actually need to be harder? And then after we got enough playtest reports that were just all over the place, it was like, okay, we can't constrain it. It's just going to be like, sometimes you get an easy city, sometimes you get a hard city, sometimes, like in a game I'm playing now, fog has been a huge pain because it disables your buildings, and then it turns out if it disables a fog building that gets rid of the fog, boy, that really kind of puts you into a pickle. And rust has like not been an issue at all. And I can imagine if rust destroys the ground when it touches another building, it can really start shaping the city in annoying way. Annoying for you, the player, interesting for me, the designer.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, I guess like I am broadly okay to speak to your spiraling out emotional journey. I'm broadly okay with the player, with that happening to the player, as long as like, I think the trick is to set the player's expectation that could happen. It's bad if you spiral out and suddenly you're just like very harshly ejected from a game when you didn't think that was going to happen or was even possible is much worse than you see the ground getting slipperier and slipperier and you're like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And then like
if I run a little bit faster,
right.
I could probably get out of this.
Just ice skate uphill like a tiny bit more. And I think like I don't know, to be honest, obviously how that'll be reacted, but the game isn't shy about having dice and having randomness, so that I think will be okay, but we'll find out. Anyway, so I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm also happy it happened to you.
No, and to be absolutely clear, I haven't hit like a game over state or anything like that. I could still try my best to try and dig myself out of this hole. It's just I'm celebrating the fact that I've made such...
and like from my point of view, there's two things to that. One, I don't even know how I would like determine what a game over is, like from a systems point of view, like literally what would the code look like to determine what a game over is.
Sure.
Unless in like very specifically like obvious circumstances, like, well, you can't roll dice, all your buildings are disabled from the fog, and it's like, well, no player is going to play that far, right? But then from like a historic thematic point of view, is it a game over, or have you just had like a story of a city that failed? Because there's a lot of stories of cities that failed in the real world, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so, you've engaged with a system that has produced a story in your head of this city that just tried its best and just couldn't get rid of rust and pissed off everybody. And once you upset enough people, they really start constraining the rules of the games, because each faction modifies the rules pretty dramatically if they're very happy or very upset at you. And I think that's part of the point and part of the goal from our side, is to prepare the player that that's what the game is doing. It's not going to consistently produce stories of cities that did a great job and entered a golden age at the end.
Holly, on your end, what is it like framing a world knowing that doom is in the cards in that way? You know what I mean? Like, not only is failure a possibility, but it's even probable in a place where sinkholes can just open up.
I mean, I remember
in your
when
city. Nick
first brought me on, and Nick already had the mausoleum, the factions, had pretty much all of it. It was all there. That's all Nick. And yeah, and then when I was kind of diving into it a little bit, and I was thinking, okay, well, if you're building a city on this terrifying mausoleum that at any point could crumble, like, oh my god, how do you deal with that? How do you feel that? And then kind of sat with that for a little bit and realized, well, we do that all the time as people. We're constantly living and building and trying to do stuff with certain kind of doom potentially hanging around us, and whether it's climate or anything else, like that's not uncommon. And you just, to a certain extent, you just get on with it. But I think one of the interesting things, I think, with the mausoleum, when I was trying to get my head around it and ended up writing it down, was I ended up kind of really thinking of it like the sea, in terms of, I was thinking about, because Nick was talking about kind of Venice and the canals and the kind of history of Venice being like a real inspiration and touch point. And I was thinking about water and erosion, and also like Venice basically has this constant battle to maintain above water and not to just flood and all of this stuff. And so many places, I went to the Isle of Wight over here, and we went on holiday, and basically erosion is a huge problem because it's a tiny little island, and like a pub that we used to go to is now practically just like in the sea, because that's just
dang
nature. And so I was thinking about the sea in particular, because it's beautiful but also terrifying, but the fact that we get something from it, the fact that we get food or we can travel and stuff like that, automatically shapes our connection to it and how we perceive it. And so kind of living, how we think about those dichotomies of it being both beautiful and magical and also fucking terrifying at the same time, and how we perceive that and all those things that we balance. And if we get something from it, then that also changes our relationship to it. And so actually kind of sitting with that and being like, it can be all these things. It can be all these things at once, and in different variations to different people and stuff like that. You might have some people who are really terrified of it. You might have some people who see it as like an opportunity, or maybe they have, they see it as maybe there's something kind of some spiritual element that kind of they feel connected to it in some way. And so that was actually really fun to think about. I think particularly it was a great excuse for me because I find environmental history really interesting, and it was something I touched on a little bit in my research, but not a huge amount. So this was a great excuse to do a bunch of reading that it's like, well, it's research, it's work, it's research, it's work. And my, exactly. Yeah, sorry, you find that out now, Nick.
That's okay.
How much you pay for me to read, but it was particularly so my PhD was in history, but also in the geography department, because I wanted to be interdisciplinary, and I felt like the kind of research I was doing, I needed to be interdisciplinary. It just worked better because I was thinking about space and place and stuff a lot, and I use a lot of kind of more human geography theories in my work. And so one of my PhD supervisors is a geographer, particularly historical geographer, she's Veronica Della Dora, and she wrote a book about a mountain. She told the history of a place via this one mountain, and talking about, the actual, history, environmental history of this thing, but also the kind of human history and how it's been perceived, how it's been depicted, and so that was a real inspiration to me in thinking about things like the mausoleum and kind of, the presence of these large things in ecologies and stuff that's out of your control, but also you're affecting it and you're not, and you're working with it and you're not, and it's against you and it isn't. And so all of that was, basically a great excuse to read a lot of environmental history. And I spent a lot of time thinking about, I think I sent a message to Nick at one point being like, is there a fish equivalent to the mausoleum? Is there like if the mausoleum is like
not fish.
Yeah.
Is the answer. Yeah.
And just like little details like that, like material realities, like massively change perceptions and feelings and stuff like that. Which is great fodder for things like events and stuff like that. And so, it was a lot of fun, but it was a kind of thing of being like, God, well, why would anyone want to build a city on this place? And then realizing, like, oh wait, we do that all the time as people. Like, we're constantly doing stuff that you would look at it and
Well, what's funny, because I've read quite a bit of books about cities in this project. What's funny is like, oh yeah, people are building cities all the time, but I think maybe an unremarked element is like also because they think it's cool to like build a city on an island that's a whole in its canals, or like in the side of a mountain, or like across this we have a city that's like it's a splits across the strait, and it's like it's also because it's cool and it looks really fun. And I
feel like it's called a folly if it doesn't work out.
Exactly. And I find that like really tickles me because I don't know, maybe like speculative fiction is a little sometimes embarrassed about doing things just because it's cool, and people in real life do it all the time. Go ahead.
I was saying, well, people do stuff like that, and historically that's happened a lot because they're like, well, we can now, and it shows how great and how far we are advanced technology wise and stuff like that, and because we can do that, and that kind of I thought a lot about in the kind of 18th century, there was this big kind of, I don't know the right word, fad or something like that, but basically, like Nautilus shells, the, really beautiful big shells, and kind of using them as part of art, but like make these really gaudy kind of like silver, getting a Nautilus shell and basically just like sticking a bunch of shit on it and adding like stuff like that. And a lot of it, you kind of see, it's like, oh, they're very, very gaudy. And a lot of the idea was this kind of, the subtext is about mastery over nature and kind of like an appreciation of nature, but at the same time like adapting it and making it quote unquote better, and
or modernizing it or whatever.
Exactly. And so thinking about that, I was thinking about stuff like that quite a lot.
I wanted to ask, I don't think I had quite heard the term environmental history before, and I think especially reading about cities, history of a city very much brings in the environment, but it's obviously situated from the point of view of the city and the people or whatever. And so my guess is environmental history is kind of that, but the other way around, where it's, it starts from the environmental point of view and goes to the like downstream effects. Is that true? Because it's just not a specific subdomain I had heard before.
Yeah, so it's now I'm doubting everything I'm going to say and feel like I'm going to get absolutely everything wrong.
Wow. Wow. This has never happened to Brendan or I, so it's quite embarrassing for you.
I'm just like quickly. Yeah, it's basically so it's basically the idea of like, for a long, long time, history was looked at as this thing of just like, it's people doing a thing, and kind of the environment and nature and ecology and all of that was kind of left to the wayside. It was seen as like a product of humanity, or it was humans doing things. Environmental history kind of complicates that a little bit and looks at it more as this kind of much more dynamic, fluid thing, potentially starting from a different place, looking at kind of ecologies and thinking of kind of the environment as an actor in and of itself, like not seeing everything via the lens of humanity, but understanding it as a thing. And it can get a little bit complicated because as with anything like this, there's loads of debates and stuff, because then there's people going, oh, well, there's an anthropomorphization of nature and environment that is problematic. And then some people say, well, no, it's all of it. But basically, it's trying to basically reshift the focus to bring the environment back into it and see it as like an active thing rather than just this like passive thing that is affected by humans. And sometimes it's like very like specific, like it'll be people who will do like climate studies over like a long period of time and stuff like that. Sometimes it's much more kind of cultural and social, like with the thing I talked about with the mountain and stuff like that, and it's much more looking at that. So I think there's like, it's a big umbrella term now, so there'll be lots of different things.
That is something we've tried to bring in with Amberspire, with the environment. I think there are things I wish I could have done more with the environment, but I really wanted, like, the main goal was you shouldn't be able to tell where the boundary is of the city and the environment. There's that kind of like, there's some terrain things like in the city, there's like holes and so on, and there's maybe like some scattered population or houses or a building you've placed that's like not really well integrated yet, right? Because the city is kind of always growing, and that idea of like being shaped by these like sort of random processes is like the core idea of the game from like a early stage, and the goal is like, if we pulled up Brendan's very good or very bad no good city and we looked at it and we go, wow, that, like, how did this happen? my goal as a designer is for Brendan to say what he said earlier, which is like, oh, well, I tried to do this, and then the rest did that, and then I tried to react to it, and so on and so forth, and you get these like little offshoots and little districts and neighborhoods and quirks and so on. That is true in all real life cities, except for the bottomless pits and like horrible grass that really screws up your construction plans and that kind of thing.
Guilty.
So that's good to hear, honestly. I guess like Brendan being bad at the game is proving me right, which is truly a blessing.
It was all worth it.
Yes, that's exactly right.
I had one follow-up question, Holly, about environmental history. If there was like, is there a particular book or reference that you would recommend for people interested in getting?
I knew it was
favorite.
Interested in learning more about that. Is there a particular thing that you would shout out?
I'm kind of looking at I've got various books around. I'm trying to think of what's a
While you're thinking, I'll shout out if you are interested in the books that I was looking at for like cities and environments and shapes. Highly would recommend Spiro Kostov's series called The City Shaped and The City Assembled. I had to look at my bookshelf and double check. Those are like really large, really like interesting, detailed, not super academic books, which is like the ideal for a game designer because you can get very quickly too deep in and you're like, I don't need to know all this. I have some books on cathedrals that I got for the Banished Vault. I'm like, oh, this is not what I wanted. This is like so specific about like one person in 13 whatever. Anyway, Spiro Kovsov's books are really good.
My PhD supervisor's book, Mountain, Veronica Delladora, Mountain, Nature and Culture, which I would recommend because she's brilliant.
Cool.
A lot of the stuff I used is quite specific and dry, so I don't know if I'd recommend them as a kind of like, oh, you should get into this.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's some of the stuff touched on from like PhD stuff, and since then I've kind of struggled to read anything for fun because doing a PhD ruins your relationship
Your
to
brain,
reading,
yeah.
and your brain and everything else. Bank balance, everything goes out the window.
That sounds fun. I should do that.
Yeah, right. You really want to. It's a real cry for help, I think. Essentially,
I've needed to have one of those for a bit. Yeah.
Brendan, we're all going to sit you down as your friends and beg you to not get a PhD, please.
the PhD intervention that should have happened to me, and frankly, my friends and loved ones really let me down.
Wow.
But.
And now books are your only friend.
Yeah, now books are my only friend, and I also don't
reading.
like them. So yeah, but not reading.
No. Where can people find you or your work generally?
On Blue Sky. Is that terrible? I'm on Blue Sky, and that's probably the main place. I really should have. I've been meaning for about 5 years to have a website of some kind, and I still don't have one, which is terrible. I know that's a thing that everyone should probably have.
Especially given the state of Blue Sky, I think we all need websites
I know.
straight away.
I know.
Yeah.
It's a real kick up the arse of like, oh yeah, I really need to have my own website because this thing is built on sand. But yeah, no, I'm just on Blue Skies. Holly Nielsen. The Danish spelling of Nielsen, which always throws people off. But yeah, that's me.
Nick, when can people see your and Holly's work in Amberspire?
You can purchase Amberspire on May 6th, which should be in 5 or 6 days from when you're hearing this. Yep. Please, so getting the word out about games is really hard. Really, 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 really difficult. The best way is when someone in your circle goes, hey, this is kind of fun. I think you'd like this. And so I am asking people to just do that because that is like absolutely the number one way that people will follow through and actually purchase games and also just hear about things, because where else are you going to hear about them? There's not that many people on Blue Sky, and just fewer and fewer by the month. So yeah, please share it around and purchase it, obviously, and that would be really great.
Looking forward to it.
Holly, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.